Welcome back to Media7. The Copyright Infringing File Sharing Amendment Act became law last year. It was intended to protect the rights of content owners and foster legitimate sales. Has it done its job? As Sam Mulgrew discovers in The Source, it depends on who you ask.
Musos, represented by APRA, the Australasian Performing Right Association, gladly received their quarterly royalties this week. Revenue is rising. APRA says the Copyright Amendment Act, which has banned peer-to-peer sharing for the past 8 months, is sending people legal in their search for tunes. The law relies on rights holders alerting internet service providers to breaches. They give out 3 strike notices before referring the offender to the Copyright Tribunal. But not a single solitary person has been sent to the tribunal for breaching the law. The law, however, is a deterrent. New Zealand's digital music market for singles, which grew in line with Australia's before the law, is now growing 70% faster, and albums 40% faster. Good news for iTunes, which has a complete stranglehold on the sector. Though we don't know how tight, it doesn't release any New Zealand-specific data. It is happy, though, to share global data. Digital music sales are up 7%. But hoarding terabytes of tunes might just be a thing of the past. Legal streaming services like Spotify, which arrives this month in this country, are taking the sector by storm. 1 in 5 Spotify users pay for the service. Globally, there has been a 56% rise in streaming volumes in just 4 months. It's hoped streaming will reduce both the urge for piracy and the dominance of iTunes.
Sam Mulgrew there, he's always top of our hit parade. Now, last August, as English cities exploded in rioting, the BBC used photos taken by members of the public in its news coverage. This in itself is nothing new. The Beeb may receive thousands of photos around a major news event. It has a whole department for it, the User-Generated Content Hub. But in this case, editors took the pictures from the social media platform Twitter without asking or crediting the creators. One man, Andy Mabbitt, complained. He was told that having been posted to Twitter, the pictures were in the public domain and thus not subject to copyright law. Then the BBC had a rethink, apologised and told Mabbitt that that wasn't the policy after all, not the law either. But it still asserted the right to, in exceptional circumstances, use photos without crediting them or clearing them. The policy was clearly a work in progress. Now, let's look at these pictures of the recent so-called supermoon, a long way from a riot. They were taken from Twitter and published without permission on the New Zealand Herald website. With me now is Jackson Perry, the photographer who took those pictures. Welcome, Jackson. Now, were you surprised to see your pictures on the Herald website, and how did you become aware of it?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. The first I heard of it was a friend alerted me to it on Twitter, and which is where I posted them. And then I had a look at the Herald website, and sure enough, there they were. I guess I was a little bit confused at first as what my reaction might be. You know, you get a picture
because
on the Herald.
Because this was feature content, wasn't it? It was a big photo feature.
Yes, they had a series of 14 photos of the supermoon, and 2 of my photos that I'd taken the night before were in that series. And yeah, I mean, you think, wow, I've got some photos in the Herald. And I thought, well, and then I thought about it a bit, and I thought, well, actually, this is a bit different from other situations I've been in where I've actually given rights to use a photo either directly or inadvertently. We can get back to that, but and they didn't ask, and hang on a minute. So I just sort of posted on the Capture NZ Twitter stream. Would have been nice to be asked.
Were the photos credited?
One was credited to Capture NZ, the Twitter thing. Neither of them mentioned my name, although admittedly that was a little bit hard to find probably. But one of them was credited to another photographer in Hamilton, and his photo was credited to me.
So it sounds like a bit of a mess. What happened next? Because the Herald did respond, didn't it?
Yeah. So then I noticed that one was wrongly credited, and I posted something else, and then eventually the Herald replied to me via Twitter and said, "We're very sorry about this. This has come to our attention. Would you like us to take them down?" And I mean, I kind of was a bit slow to respond, perhaps, but my first response was, actually, what's your policy on this? And there was kind of silence, understandably, I guess. And then I sent another one and said, well, actually, yeah, sure, leave them on there as long as they're properly credited. And so, yeah, I mean,
Do you think that this is a situation where the social photography archive has grown so big, and yet no one quite knows what the process is?
I don't think they do, no. I think, I mean, I think if you have the time to go and read the fine print of everybody's website, and, you know, coming into this, I read the BBC policy, and the last line says basically, we have lawyers. I mean, which, you know.
Well, I mean, I should point out that the Herald didn't say that, and we'll get
that's right.
at one point to the response, which I think is actually quite admirable. Yeah. Let's look at another photo. This is a picture of the Auckland cityscape, and you may have seen it before in the Herald, on TVNZ, and various other places. And that's by a guy called Alex Efimov, who's a professional photographer. He put that up on Wikipedia under a very liberal Creative Commons license. Anyone could use it for anything. All they had to do was attribute it to him, and they didn't. No one did.
I mean, I actually used that photo to do the Google search has this facility where you can load a photo or load a URL with a photo on it, and it goes and searches for a similar photo on the internet. And Alex's photo turned up in about 14 different places, and only half of them accredited him, and most of them were just credits to Wikipedia. But the rest of them were just using...
let's get this clear. Photo Twitter and photo Wikipedia are not photo credits, are they?
No.
And it strikes me that this kind of undermines these very liberal Creative Commons licenses, which are meant to make this work usable, when no one does what the license says.
Well, that's right. And I mean, I think there's a bit of naivety on the side of the photographers sometimes as well. I mean, I certainly was naive at times in how I put things up there. I mean, one of my photos was, I put it on Weather Watch, and it also ended up on the Herald website. But in the Weather Watch terms and conditions, it says photos posted on Weather Watch might be used by APN. And so I'd given them that. That
was the fine print. So you did give them permission in that case. Now, we were hoping to be joined by Jeremy Rees, who's the managing editor of APN Online, but he decided at the last moment he couldn't possibly come in. But he did say that he was sitting down with APN's lawyers next week to devise a practice around this. And it appears to have been as a result of your case. So that's a result, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's quite surprising. But, I mean, I think during the discussions we had, both on Twitter and on our blog afterwards, we wanted to find some kind of practical road out of this that had a positive result. So, yeah, I mean, if they come up with a readable policy, that'll be great.
Well, it looks like we are going to get a positive result, so that's nice. Thank you, Jackson Perry. Now, you may or may not have been wondering, how's Paul Henry getting on in his new job in Australia? Well, via ABC Media Watch, like this.
This was the front page story in Sydney's Daily Telegraph.
Boat houses.
The federal government will pay families up to $300 a week to temporarily house asylum seekers in their homes to help deal with the increasing flood of arrivals.
It was a perfect opportunity for Paul Henry, one of the hosts of 10's new breakfast programme, to show off his paces.
But I was thinking you could broaden it out. I mean, if this is all about saving money, you know, you could broaden it out. Why not criminals? Not murderers, but low-level criminals. The jails could be smaller and you could put them in homestay situations. The mentally ill.
Paul,
the mentally ill could go into homes.
This is the classic demonisation of asylum seekers.
Comedy all the way. Henry's been imported from New Zealand, specifically, it seems, to kick Australian television's political correctness in the goolies.
Yeah. But you volunteer for this.
Exactly.
So obviously if you're stretched and you're struggling, you don't have the room, you're not going to say yes to a refugee to come around and live in the linen cupboard.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. $300 a week for the linen cupboard. You'd want to get the linen out, wouldn't you? Oh, these sheets are dirty.
Oh, Paul, you just always have to take it one step too far.
No. These towels. No. We got someone living in the linen cupboard, kids, just don't go in there.
Sick, eh? What's sicker still is that Henry's bosses at 10 will be delighted that their struggling little breakfast show has featured on Media Watch. If they'd had any shame, they wouldn't have hired him in the first place.
So, same old jokes then. Thanks again to Paul Brislin, Rick Friesen and Jackson Perry, and to you for watching. We'll be back with Media7 at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.